And welcome to episode 37 of TruBlu Politics Podcast with me, Karen and Anita. Hello, Anita.
Hello, Karen.
Where our fate will lie on a blue wave, we rise to save the day. Only me, only you can let our hearts sail away on a blue wave.
So today, Anita and I are joined with Debrianna Mansini and Lisa Lucas of Kitchen Bitches, formerly known as Corona Kitchen, and co-authors of That Time We Ate Our Feelings, a beautiful cookbook replete with delicious family recipes that were beautifully photographed by Penina Mycels. And so where's my copy? I have a copy, and Anita, you should get one too.
I want to get one. Weren't you on the Stephanie Miller show promoting it during Corona?
We were.
I think I remember that. And I thought about it too. And I was like, I need to get that. I just haven't. I don't know why. Well, I'd have to get it on Audible because I'm legally blind, but yeah, on Audible or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been actually trying to figure out a way to do an Audible version ourselves because there's a huge amount of essays in there. It's very readable outside of cooking. I mean, if you don't cook, you can actually just read it.
Right.
Is it on Kindle?
No, that's what we're trying to investigate now to see if we can get that to happen.
Well,
Okay.
you can get it on Kindle, Debrianna, on Amazon. But I don't, now that you're saying that, doesn't that mean that it could be heard if it is?
That's right. That was what I was going to say because
Oh
it
my
can
God.
read it. It can read it to me.
realize
Yes.
I didn't
Yes.
realize that.
So if you can get it on Kindle, that would be great.
It
Or if
is
you have it on
available.
Kindle, I'll look for it on Kindle then.
It is
For sure.
available. Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. That's
Perfect.
fantastic.
See?
I know.
It's for everybody.
Oh, I know,
Everybody
it is
can get it.
for
Thank you. We didn't even realize that.
accessibility and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I tell, so just for our listeners that are not familiar with the Kitchen Bitches, tell us how this all came about.
Well, it was COVID. Everybody was locked down. We didn't, when you put yourself back in that time, nobody knew what was happening. We all just knew that we couldn't go anywhere. We could barely get sugar. We couldn't find anything in the grocery stores, and people were trapped in their houses trying to cook. And Lisa and I had been friends for quite a long time. We had a very funny meeting of how we met. We were commiserating over a company dinner that was terrible.
The food was terrible.
Yeah, the food was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had met this guy on Twitter in the very early years of Twitter, and we became friends as you do, as we have actually. You and I have, Karen, that way.
Yep.
And he was a salesman for a big ad buys for big companies, and so he was coming to Albuquerque to Reels Network to an event that they were holding, for their people who sell them ads and stuff. And he goes, "Hey, you want to be my +1? Then we can meet." I was like, okay. So I met him in Albuquerque, and we did a tour of the Reels studio, and then we went to this Shishi resort to go have dinner. And then go ahead, Lisa, tell your side of it.
Well, I was running the programming there. Debrianna and I are both from film and television world. I'm a producer, writer, sometimes actor, and she's a big time actor, writer.
We know.
And
Yeah.
So I didn't want to go to this dinner. I said to the CEO, like, I'm so busy. I can't do this stuff right now. He's like, you have to go. So they sat me completely just serendipitously next to this card that said Debrianna Mansini. I'm like, who's Debrianna Mansini? what am I doing?
Got a great name though.
And so we just complete happenstance that we sat next to each other, and then we just instantly bonded over the terrible food. And I knew when I was there that I'd probably made a friend for life. We were so in sync. Brianna's Italian, I'm Croatian. It's like we have so many crossovers. We're the eldest of five girls in our families. We have so
It's so crazy how many.
I don't even want to know. Like we wear the same color shirts all the time. We don't tell each other.
Wow.
Oh,
it's so crazy. So
you're soul sisters.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
But what we do both love is food, family and food and being an expression of love and comfort and all those things.
Yeah, that's the Italian Croatian stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
We both had that. And so during COVID, it was so scary, like Debrianna said, and she called me up with the crazy idea. She's like, hey, what if, one day, I make something and you're having a glass of wine, like watching me on a live stream, and, and then we'll trade off, and I'll do Tuesdays, you do Thursdays, and then we'll just invite our friends and family. We'll just like try to cope and stay together, and cook and stuff, and it'll help, and the next we knew, a carrot cake went viral. We had like global, we created
and we cooked instead of every like Tuesday and Thursday. I don't know what we started out, and we ended up cooking for 143 days in a row.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nonstop.
And then I said, hey, wait, we're the network. We can take weekends off. We don't have to do this.
Yes.
Lisa, the producer, she's like, wait a minute.
Why are we doing this? But, the thing about it was we definitely struck a nerve, right, I think. And that was, talking about politics was something, being feminist, cooking, family, state of the world, coping. Like there were people that were, living alone in their apartment in Kansas City that we didn't know would reach out to us and say, I have to watch you every night. I'm scared. Your food, your camaraderie, your friendship is bringing me joy and hope, and I can handle this now because I'm watching you. And we were like, oh my God, we're really affecting people's lives. So,
that's amazing.
The whole book.
And it was crazy. Then Lisa got a call from someone she had optioned a book from. And he's like, hey, my publisher's looking for a quirky cookbook. I was thinking about you guys. And Lisa and I had already been approached by our followers to put something out. So we kind of had an idea of what we wanted to do. And we thought we were just going to, go to Kinko's and make the, church kind of, mimeographed, like that's how old I am. Put a book together and sell them for $5 or something.
Yeah. Like one of the church recipe books,
right?
Spiral.
Moms put their recipes together. So, but we had an idea of what we wanted to do. So he said, let me introduce you to my publisher. And so he did. And, we're in a third act of our lives, as Lisa likes to say. And so we were just like, you know what? We're going to do the book the way we want to do it. And if that's not okay with you, that's okay. We had no hope that this was going to go.
I mean, we really, in a lot of ways, didn't have a shot because as a person who's pitched a billion things in Hollywood and that kind of stuff, it's 99% no. It's so hard. Cookbooks are very competitive. It's just that you guys know
extraordinarily competitive in the cookbook arena.
So,
we're not chefs. We're not, famous.
It's like
everybody has a cookbook too.
Yeah.
There's so many people that put out cookbooks.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So we thought, okay, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, because this might not be our only shot, and we're probably not going to get it, but let's just go through the exercise anyway. So we hired a designer. We put this really beautiful package together of just this sort of retro feel, because we love our, grandma's 1940s aprons, but we're feminist. We like to write stories. about the provenance of these recipes, but then we kind of do it through our own like filter of many years of therapy. So it's different.
Oh my God, I'm gonna have to get that book. I'm just gonna have to. That sounds fabulous.
It's political. We did not shy away from our politics because that's how our people knew us.
Right.
Yeah.
And she went, so we had the meeting and we gave her our writing samples, we gave her a proof of concept and the design and all that. And she went, okay.
That's so great.
And the two of us hung up and we're like, what?
That's just an amazing story. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a world of cook or be cooked, you know. No, but you know, the thing that I love so much about it is because, you know, in that time, you know, and I felt this as, you know, the mom and, you know, the wife or whatever, and that I'm typically the one that is cooking for the family. My husband knows how to cook, but he pretends like he doesn't. I'm not good at it, you know. Yeah.
My husband pretends he knows how to cook, but he doesn't.
But he doesn't. Yeah. So, you know, but for me, it was like one of those things that was so challenging to be like, oh my God, like we can't go out. I don't, you know, like take, you know, if you do delivery, it's like so expensive. And it was like, so it really,
we were washing
it was
all of
scary
our groceries.
Yes, it was scary. I had somebody deliver something from DoorDash at one time, and I was like, "Oh my God, he wasn't wearing a mask," and I just thought for sure I got COVID from him.
Right, I remember that.
It was very scary.
It was so scary. We couldn't find things, so that was another kind of signature thing that we do. Is if you don't have this, try using that.
Right.
See what happens.
Yeah, alternatives.
You know?
Right. Which
we were inventing too. Like Debrianna is a great inventor. I always say that on the show. We do a show every Monday night still. We have
still 5 years later.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. 750 videos on YouTube. Check it out. But anyway.
I have to tell my daughter. She loves to cook. She'll love that channel.
Oh yeah. And we talk to people, like it's interactive. So when we're live, you can talk to us.
Yes.
Oh yeah. The live stuff. I love that. Yeah.
And you also, you know, you're inventing, but then, you know, we're making mistakes. Like, you know, sometimes things don't turn out. I made an angel food cake. It totally fell out. I'm like, no, what do I do?
Like normal people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was making vegetable lasagna and idiot using a mandolin with no glove, and I sliced my finger, and I just kept going, and people are like typing, and they're going, "Does she need Band-Aid?"
Was there blood?
It's so it's like that skit from SNL, you know,
Yeah, it was
with
They chop off their hands.
Yeah.
Dickens out of my finger.
Well, the other thing is really funny. We're funny. Like life happens. We're funny. We're friends, and I think people just want to be a part of that. You know, it's just it's real. You know, we're real life out there.
Right.
People people want authenticity nowadays. That's what they want, and that's what you're offering.
Yeah, because I mean, there's nothing but inauthentic, you know, lying grifters running everything right now. But let's go back. So like so you know, for me, I just want to say, for me, I felt like it was so needed. What you guys were doing was so needed because all of that pressure was on all of us. And it's like, I mean, I have a lot of cookbooks, but I mean, I always appreciate like new cookbooks, and also just to have something that is so meaningful and just, you know, that, you know, you're pulling from your ancestry, you know, you're pulling from the past and you're bringing it forward. And, you know, for me, you know, I feel like that was one of the bright spots, was that you guys were there to kind of come into all of our kitchens and, you know, provide us with an outlet and a way to kind of cope and get through it and, you know, build that community. And the bonus was just seeing women coming together.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, to create beauty and sustenance in the space of darkness when we all felt really alone. So I just want to say, you know, thank you for that. And I know other people share that sentiment as well. Yeah.
And it was really encouraging for us when we were book touring last year to meet people who had, you know, either been following us or had heard a podcast like this and came to meet us. And how many people were so like moved to tears?
Seriously, I'm getting verklempt right now just talking about it.
I am too.
Yeah.
Well, and they're comfort foods that you know, your recipes are like
hugs.
Right.
Warm hugs.
Yeah, but also to see women who are not 30, not
Right.
28,
Right.
you know, like have been through life and have viewpoints that we're
Mhm.
not afraid to say,
Yes.
and feel like, you know, you're not dead at this age. You can be
Mm-mm.
doing something else.
No,
Yeah.
people we got that would come to book signings and go, I can't believe you did this. I want to do something like this in my life, whether it's this type of thing or some other type of thing they want to start. Like, how did you do it? And I think, you know, we really dug deep in those, you know, just kind of searching for, well, you know, you got to start with good foundation of friends and trust. And, you know, we have each other's back. Like, we're like sisters from another life. Like it is, you know, and
You trust each other that much.
women,
Yeah.
that, you know, female tribe in your life is just everything. And we've been through so much. And we talk about this all the time of like what you were referencing before of just, you know, the myth of having it all and all the pressure women have to be the wife, mother, whatever. The government, you know, taking our rights away, being daughters of immigrants and in this country. And, you know, like every topic that we can think of as women in our third act of life, we discuss. And we just
Right.
It's,
And now we have a
it's
Substack.
inspirational. It's also inspirational to so many people.
Yeah. And now because we're in this place of continually growing, we started a Substack, I don't know, a couple months ago. Lisa is an Emmy-winning producer and writer, and I've been writing my whole life, and so Lisa and I started a Substack where we write every other week each of our point of views, and it's called Baking It's Better Than Murder.
Yes.
Usually I say, but only marginally right now.
I was going to say, sometimes maybe not.
And so, you know, it's musings on food and feminism and politics and where we are right now, kind of journaling where we are right now. And so we would, you know, encourage people to follow us over there on Substack.
I do. I follow
What's it called?
Oh,
What's it called?
Well,
Baking.
Oh no, baking is better. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Baking is better than
Who
murder.
can forget that? That's true.
Well, I totally agree, you know, and I started a Substack as well. It's called the Resistance Journal.
Yes.
My intention going in was I'm going to be writing something every day, kind of doing like a daily blog. And then honestly, it's just gotten to be so anxiety filled. And it's almost like the challenge for me is like organizing my thoughts and trying to articulate it because it is so raw.
There's so much.
So it's just coming at us now.
There's too much. I have to get away from it.
Yeah.
We say that every week. It's like, what topic do we choose? There's only to choose from right now of what you want to express. But
especially if you do it every other week like we do.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I just wrote one on Wednesday, so they go live every Wednesday, and mine was called "Just Give a Damn, Will Ya?"
Yeah.
And I really, after Memorial Day, and you can read it, I really was thinking about my grandfather being in the U.S. Coast Guard after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and he was manning the lighthouse on San Francisco Bay. So I was just thinking about how vile and disrespectful the president's tweet post was, you know, and didn't mention the servicemen and women. And I was just like,
I know.
I can't even. I have to express this because it's just so upsetting to me that we're here. And that's just one of the many reasons I'm upset. But, you know, so that's what that one was about. But we write on all the topics. Maybe we'll have another book coming out of it, you know, in a year.
Yeah, like
hopefully we won't have another pandemic.
But you know, because I do feel that you know that is
going to happen.
That is one of the things. Like our role in the resistance is to document it, right? So whether, you know, like documenting the protests that we go to or just, you know, how we're taking in and bearing witness to everything that we're seeing. And it is a challenge. So, I mean, hats off to you guys that you're, you know, kind of staying on a schedule. I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't feel like, you know, curling up in a fetal position in the corner. So I guess I'll write a Substack. So, you know.
No,
We've been very disciplined about it, actually. Well, it's because of we're where we come in both of our backgrounds. If the only way you make it in Hollywood is to be a very disciplined person, or never
Right.
mind. Especially if you're female,
It
that
takes it takes
there's
a lot
whole
of
there's a
tenacity.
whole background that goes with that too, which is happens in a lot of fields, as we know. And I don't know if you guys know this, but women can't do math.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. I learned that when I was a mortgage broker for 8 years. That many people had that sentiment, including some women.
Yes.
Have you read that book about that woman who was a mathematician, very like a genius, and she starts, and this is like in the 50s, and she actually uses math for cooking, and she ends up having a cooking show.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Oh my God, what is the name of it? And they made a movie out of it, as a matter of
Yes,
fact.
they did.
What is the name of it? Math.
It's a series on Hulu. It's called what's it called? Something chemistry.
Yes.
Lessons in
my
chemistry.
God.
Lessons in chemistry.
Oh my
And
God,
it's very good. The book
it's
is
very good.
probably better.
Very good.
But yes, cooking is actual math.
Right.
Yes. That's exactly what that book is about.
Yeah.
Read the book if you haven't read the book. But
Well, and I'm drawing a blank because what was that other movie about the black
the
worker?
scientists who were in NASA?
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, especially black women, they really can't do math.
Right.
that's right.
But so
that's why they got no credit for it.
So it does.
Yeah.
It does speak to the cultural conditioning. Not only how boys and men are conditioned culturally, but then also how girls and women are conditioned. And through
It
popular
goes through
culture.
stories, all of our because life is strung together by our stories. That's really what holds us all together are the stories. Whether before there was film and television, there were books, and before books it was verbal, but it was always through stories.
Right.
And so when you go back to, like I always say, it goes back to the first story, Adam and Eve, and the virgin birth. It was always about putting women in an untenable place from the beginning. And so that cultural conditioning is not only on women, but it's on men too.
And the only stories that mattered were stories that men told from their perspective.
What's
The
happening?
Bible,
I think what's happening right now is that if you haven't figured it out, everybody, it's the dawning of the realization that we are living under patriarchy. And in patriarchy, we're not the ones. We're collateral damage in patriarchy. So, like I was gonna say, I don't know how many people have had these experiences when they were younger, but you're living your life, you're thinking it's okay, and then at some point something happens. I mean, it happened for me really, really young, where like something's different here, where there is different treatment of men. I'm a girl, I'm little, but like, why do they get something and I don't? And why am I less than? And why do I feel this thing, which you later find out is shame? I mean, I had arguments with teachers in high school where I was like, okay, you're showing me the U.S. history book. I went up to my teacher and I said, there are no women in this book. There are no people in this book. Are you serious? And this is before the people's histories of the United States and any kind of awakening of that sort in a textbook. And as a Yale graduate prep school teacher of U.S. history in the 80s, and I just said, are you kidding me that there are no women or anybody else of any other type of person other than a white male that we are going to be taught about in history? There's something wrong here. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, well, if there were women or anybody else who did anything of note, Lisa, they would be in the book. And I said, I reject that. I said, I absolutely reject that. And he said, well, you want to do a research project about anybody else that might have invented something or been historical, and so I did. I spent months writing, and I handed it to him. I'm like, there you go. And it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And he just could care less. He could care less.
No, of course. It's all just. I asked my priest. I remember when I was 7 years old why girls couldn't be altar boys. And he was like, I don't know.
Because of the virgin birth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, that's true, but he didn't want to tell me that.
That just didn't make sense. We
Right.
were of Adam. We ate the apple. We're to blame.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah, well,
And-
of course we are. What's to blame?
Well, and by the way, that's why we have pain in childbirth. Hello.
Yes.
Oh, that one really got me.
Right?
That one really got me.
Original
I was
sin.
like,
Yeah.
there is
No,
something wrong.
Yes.
So for me, like even I saw a documentary a long time ago about the witch burnings, and that the theory that was posited was that the witch burnings were actually because women were midwives and they were taking business from the men.
Yes.
So
Yeah, you were talking about that.
The whole idea about burning women and getting them out of the it was getting them out of the workforce. It has always been the driving force. No, no, no. You stay home and have babies, which is exactly where we are now. And
So
it
they can control us.
massively pushed to the surface because we had a way to control our bodies with birth control. And they
That's
haven't
right.
gotten over abortion or birth control.
Birth control,
pills. The
no.
moment they hit the market.
No fault divorce, anything.
No,
that-
you
that gives
can't
women
control
some
your
control.
body or your destiny. And
And
Nope.
and they
No.
use the tactics like shame of like if a woman gets raped or something, it's like, well, the passion, da da da. No, it's
Yeah.
about power and violence.
Yes.
And control.
No,
well, it
yeah.
always made me
Women can't control
mad
themselves.
about the argument about abortion, which was only even in cases of rape and incest.
Mhm.
I'm like, stop that.
Well, right. And
Why
Anita
are you
has
saying it
always.
that way?
Yeah, I've always
Yeah,
said.
Anita has
and
always
we
talked
talked
about
about this
that.
to Debrianna, that they give the game away when they talk about exceptions for rape or incest,
Yep.
because it's not about, the life that they're, that they believe is murder. It's
No,
about
it's always
about
framed
controlling
around
the
the
women.
person
If
who
you-
abused
right.
you.
They
If
don't
you
care
weren't
about
bad-
life. That whole thing drives me nuts. After I had my two kids, my stepmom, who is a Trumper, came up to me and said, oh, I bet now that you have children, you're more pro-life than ever. And I was like,
God.
actually, that is total bullshit. And no, you should not be having a kid unless you really want it.
Mhm.
most women who have abortions have children.
Love.
Yes.
You have to put love and care into doing this, and it's hard. And it's just
hard.
like, why would you ever want to force somebody to do that? It's not going to be a good scenario.
No.
It's not good for the children. It's not good for the mother. It's not good for anybody involved.
No, and that's
And-
why, and it is most women who have abortions already have families.
Already have
That's
children.
why my
My mother-
favorite hashtag is Republicans kill moms.
Yes,
That's what
that's
they
right.
do.
No, they kill women, but they kill moms too.
Yeah, but
Women.
nobody cares about women, but they do.
That's
care
true. But
about women.
moms, that's true.
Well, they
That's
say
true.
they care about moms.
And you
Yeah.
can never get them to get a straight answer. It's like, okay, if we're going to be forced to have babies, who are you going to help pay for that? Like,
No.
No, the baby.
Exactly.
No. That's why they care about the unborn so much, because they don't have to do anything. They
Right.
don't have to feed it. They don't have to clothe it. It's very easy, to worship the fetus or the unborn, because they don't have to, do anything. They don't have to pass any, laws to protect actual children.
right.
Well, how about that $5,000 to have a baby?
my
I'm like,
God.
Oh, my
listen,
After
listen.
the fifth baby.
$5,000 isn't enough to take me out for a drink and ask me if I would want to do that. No.
And at any hospital in the United States, if you don't have insurance, you're not having that baby for $5,000.
No.
The average insurance costs, I think, are like $45,000
Oh, yeah.
a baby. Like, what kind of arbitrary, crazy notion would be $5,000 could do anything?
Well, Lisa,
For a
because
lifetime.
women can't do math, they think we're stupid.
And the maddening thing is that it is the mainstream media. Have they ever, at those Sunday morning roundtables, ever posed the question to any of these Republican legislatures? Just that point. It's like you're forcing women to give birth, but then every single, and just go down the list of policies that would be required, or that families would be dependent on in order to support those children.
Christian
And
values.
They don't ask
educate
a
those
man.
children.
They don't
Right.
ask a man running for office, how are you going to handle raising a
Right.
family and, serving the
Oh, you're
public?
just too emotional.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, John Boehner, who cried at the drop of a
Oh
hat.
my God.
Yes.
I know.
They
Oh,
never
he was
want to
always
talk
crying.
about. They never want to talk about either, what about our autonomy? What about
Right.
our bodies? Can
Right.
you don't trust us to be in control of our bodies? I mean, like,
No, they don't.
sorry.
They don't.
Yeah. No,
They don't care.
I had a conversation, I'll never forget this, because I have phone bank for at least 20 years. But, fairly recently, phone bank, I think it was it was early in this cycle, this past presidential cycle. I was talking to a voter in Texas, and she said, "Well, it's just the abortion thing. I'm pro-life. And I don't agree with, late term abortion." And I'm like, okay, let's have that conversation. You're a female. Let's just think about what happens when you get pregnant. You are going through 9 months of pregnancy, your body changing. God knows what's happening to you physically. You could have blood pressure issues. You could have morning sickness. You're putting on weight. You have to buy new clothes. Oh, and not to mention preparation for the baby. You're painting a bedroom. You're going around. People are having showers for you. You're picking out a name. Do you actually think a woman, would you, in your 8th or 9th month of pregnancy, just say, "Oh, well, never mind. I don't want it"?
Yeah.
Is that logical? And
No
she
one
didn't say
would ever
anything
do
for a
that.
long time, and she went, "Well, no." I said, exactly. If you need to have an abortion in your 8th or 9th month, it's because you must, not because you want. Any woman who thinks about it for longer than 5 minutes can come to that conclusion.
They just use that. They talk about late term abortions, like women
It's
are
not a
having
real
willy
thing,
nilly.
but
It's not a thing.
nobody pushes
Yeah.
back on that.
No
Nobody.
Democrat
No one ever
pushes
does.
back.
And
Yes.
they never push back on the shame involved, because the real issue here is,
Mhm.
oh, you shouldn't have worn that. You shouldn't have worn that skirt so short. You wouldn't have gotten raped. It's your fault. And oh, P.S., if you wanted to have a baby on your own and you were a lesbian couple or you're a single woman, like, we don't want that either. Like, we want to control you. We want to shame you for having sex. And not be birth
That's what
control.
that's what it's all about.
Birth. It goes
That's
back
what it's
to
all
the
about. That's
virgin
why there's
birth.
rape and incest exceptions, because that you didn't really do it on purpose. You weren't having sex on purpose.
But we're
So,
going to make you have the baby.
yeah, we're gonna have
Yes.
So we're not going
Yes.
to make you have that baby.
So horrible. It's just so
I mean, it's just disgusting. These people, of course, they don't care. They just want to control women.
Well, there's many things that need to be called out, and one of them is, quote unquote, their Christian values. Because if you're
that's a
starving
bunch of
kids,
bull. Yeah.
if you're not helping moms raise those kids, and yet you force them to have them, those are not Christian values. But nobody ever pushes back on that either.
right.
It is
Because
not
they're
a
afraid
Christian
to.
value.
The pundits are afraid to. The mainstream media, they're afraid to
Well,
push
so
back
are
on
the
that stuff.
Democrats. They never do
Yes,
either.
that's true. The Democrats are afraid to push back on it too, and it's time they do that.
Yeah.
Who is it? Maybe what's his name? Pete, Mayor Pete. What's it?
Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg. I think he has occasionally.
But now so let's go back to this, because of course what we saw in this past election was there were ballot initiatives that included overturning the Dobbs decision, right? And so so there were a lot of white women that gave cover to vote for the initiatives, but then to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of more of the same, supporting the patriarchy, basically, voting by proxy because their husbands, their Republican voting husbands who have been telling them that they need to vote Republican. So it kind of gave those women cover. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like on that one issue, but it's like, and I would argue that it is because of the cultural conditioning that they feel like they have to carry their husband's water and that they've got to vote the way their husbands tell them or the way they think their husbands want them to vote.
Listen, Karen.
I think they feel protected. I think these white women feel like they're going to be protected by the patriarchy.
All you need to know is the story of the Handmaid's Tale. Okay. They're the Serena Joys of the world.
Yes.
And what happened to her? Okay.
Yes.
Like they have their dawning eventually that the men are never, ever going to have their back when push comes to shove. But
Never,
they're
ever.
believe.
Well,
they
look
believe
at
that they
look at that
will.
new court ruling that halted the abortion law that the people voted for.
Mm-hmm.
In
They're
Ohio
stopping
or
it
something?
anyway. They're stopping it anyway.
So
Yeah.
one of the,
That was
yeah,
in
there's
Missouri.
but they don't.
In
They don't
Missouri.
believe. Yeah, they don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in. None of these Republicans do, and it's perfectly obvious now.
Yeah.
Right. So how do we disrupt that? Because I mean, we come from women of a certain generation, and my mom was, kind of coming into as a oh gosh, she must have been in her late 20s, early 30s when, ERA started, came into the forefront. And, Anita and I have talked about this. We both remember a time when our mothers didn't have their own bank accounts. They didn't have their own checking accounts. They didn't have their own credit cards. And we remember when our mothers were able to get those things. So it isn't that far back, right?
No,
We're not
it
talking
isn't.
about that far back. But it's like they were kind of like coming from that old school, like with my grandmother who would stay up until 2:00 in the morning ironing the shirts of her 6 children and her husband, for the next day. And then, so being raised by that kind of archetype, right? Archetype to then having these women that are kind of moving away from that into, more autonomy over their own decisions and economies and et cetera. But now we are the daughters of those women. But I was definitely culturally conditioned by my mother, who it's like she came to a certain point, but there was still that kind of finding its way into my own, who I was becoming as a woman.
Yeah.
So can you speak to that? Do you guys have any? Because I have a couple of examples of like kind of where it manifested itself for me. Do you have anything like that?
Wait,
Yeah,
can I
Anita,
just say
go
something?
ahead.
Because the experiences are different, okay?
Yes.
Your experience is different than both of you are first generation, right? Immigrants.
Yes. Yeah, I
Okay,
am.
then
Yeah.
mine,
Lisa's not. I am.
or Debrianna's or Lisa's.
I might as well have been first because, they
Me too. I was second, but
locked in the cultural heritage.
Yeah, my mom came on the boat.
wasp. I'm a total wasp.
when as a total wasp, your mother probably stayed home with you, and your grandmother
For a time.
certainly stayed
Yeah,
home.
for a
Certainly
time.
stayed home. My mother
I'll
always
speak
worked.
to that. Yeah, but I will speak to that because
and my grandmother always worked.
Yeah, because there was a genesis there. There was a transformation too.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
But my
Nita,
grandmother
talk about
always
yours.
worked. My grandmother always worked because they came here and they had to work she had to work in the factories, to raise in order to raise her children and become Americans, right?
Yep.
I'll never
So,
forget my
immigrants are-
grandmother who worked and raised her kids and was married, but my grandfather died and she still had to work. But I remember her saying to me, because I was talking about trying to buy a duplex, and she said, if I could have been allowed to, I would have had real estate. And that I remember, like, that broke my heart to hear my grandmother say that when she was the one working. She retired from Pepperidge Farm, and she was also taking care of my uncle who was mentally disabled, all the way up until she was 80 something. He lived with her.
Right.
And, so she was, as most women, doing double duty, not getting the credit, was not allowed to buy real estate.
Yes.
Yeah, my grandmother said kind of the same thing. I asked her to teach me to knit, and she said, "No, you don't need to learn this. You need to, learn, pay attention in school and get smart and
really
have a career."
I had those stealth people. Like my mom was totally stealth in this mindset that you're talking about, where she had to be a traditional wife, helpmate mother to her husband who had a job and starting a big business and whatever. And she was there to service him and help him and raise the children. That was her only purpose. She was not allowed to work, not allowed to do anything. But she would secretly go on these business trips with my dad. Come back with a little book that she slipped to us. Girls can do anything. I remember getting 1973 and reading it in front of my class in grammar school, and the teacher in the parochial school going, that wasn't sanctioned. You know what I mean? Once again, Lisa, go put your nose in the corner, and I had to stay there a lot because my mom would be slipping me this stuff. Oh, here's a fun t-shirt for you, ERA. What does that mean? You know, and she would tell us this stuff. She had to live this double life.
Mm-hmm.
Finally divorced my dad. But like, she did not have that energy until the feminist movement and really the wave happened in the 70s. Like everything changed for her and her friends. I watched them change. You know,
I did too. I remember Billie Jean King.
I saw the whole thing.
Billie Jean King in that tennis match with Bobby.
Yes.
Oh my God, my mother, we were all like cheering for her. Billie Jean.
And then, you know, and that's what we're seeing. This huge pushback is against that exact thing. And they are 100% not hiding it. It is anti-feminist.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Clamp it down. They're clamping it down.
More than anything, because that's why they're getting some of the black men and some of the Hispanic men. It is an anti-female movement.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to say, and then I did want to play this clip that Anita sent me, and then we'll kind of talk about it on the backside. But Lisa, can relate. That was my mom, totally. You know, it's like she came from, it's like her story was that her father died when she was 5. And so now here her infant sister had died right before he got sick and died. Okay. So a lot of trauma in her, you know, for her as a very young kid. And then just real quick summary. So then my grandmother is now a widow. And now she's got this child. So she answered classified ad for a widower who has a daughter and needs a live-in housekeeper. So she answers the ad. He's wealthy, World War II vet. She moves my mom and her in. They end up getting married. So now she moves from this like really desperate situation into a very affluent community and household. And so that's how my mother was able to be raised that way. And that's, so anyway, but then, you know, she, like your mom, Lisa, was kind of put into that traditional role because her mother-in-law and her mother were kind of, you know, that was the expectation there, right? And so, but she went back to school. And I remember my grandfather, you know, really demeaning and diminishing the fact and really, you know, making some nasty comments towards my mom for leaving the 5 kids. Oh my God, you know, like abandoning your children to go and get an education so that she could become a nurse and have some autonomy because she wasn't happy. She was not happy in the marriage. And that was what made it possible for her to file for divorce for my dad.
I think so many things have to do with, you know, and I can say this now after years of therapy, okay? But, you know, you're young. I had to suffer through my parents' divorce. It was horrible. But at the time I was upset. But then not too long afterwards, I really could start to understand my mother's plea of why she did it, what she needed for herself, what she needed for her soul, women around her of that time. It's like, you did what you had to do to take care of your kids and get ahead and do whatever. But then, like, what about them? Were they going to just die without ever having had a chance to have a life to even do or think or breathe in a way that was theirs?
Yeah.
Right.
Just this companion, you know, worker, you know, it's like that labor song by Paris Paloma, you know, or just 24 hours, 7 days a week labor. Is that all we are? You know, servicing others. We have to be able to have our own life. We are human beings. And that's what we fight against daily. Still, no, I can't imagine what it would be like for me now or any of us to be in our 20s or 30s and go like, oh my God, I can't get plan B. I can't get an IUD, like terrified. And they're educated and they know what's being taken away and it's dawning on them now.
Yeah.
I think about those trad wives and, you know, what how they're going to feel 20 or 30 years from now. I mean, I doubt they're going to stick with it. But if they do, I mean, they're going to find out real quick that not having your own money, your own career, your own, being educated, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass.
Well, it's
Absolutely.
No way to live for any human being.
Well, the other thing is it does take two incomes now.
Now
Yes.
it takes, that's right. And that's what they've
Totally.
done. Republicans have made
this
it.
place where like there's no way out.
Well, Republicans did this. They created
did.
a country where you
That's
need.
my other favorite hashtag.
Yeah.
Republicans did this.
Well, they did do this. They made it
They
so that
did.
you cannot survive on one income. So now they want to send us back into the kitchen. It would. I mean, it wouldn't be. The economy would collapse.
That's right.
Holy shit, this is a horror show. And honestly, we couldn't do this without our loyal listeners and love hearing from you. So please, please give us some stars and a review if you are so inclined wherever you get this podcast. I know that we are all feeling the pain of this second felon 47 occupation. But Anita and I really, really understand the assignment, and we want to be here for all of you, our loyal listeners. Without you, we couldn't make this happen. We could not keep this running. So, TruBlu Politics is sponsored by, of course, our wonderful TruBlu crew of listeners and our supporters on Patreon. As a small startup podcast, our Patreon members help us pay the bills to keep our podcast running and also allow us to keep investing in equipment upgrades for even better quality content in the future. We all have our day jobs. I know I have a day job, and that requires a lot of my time, but I want to be able to devote as much time to having these conversations, getting the word out, fighting the good fight against tyranny. So much of this is reliant on our community of progressives and road warriors. So when you sign up as a monthly TruBlu crew member on Patreon at even just $5, you instantly unlock our private TruBlu pod chat and full episodes a day earlier than everyone else without ads in the middle. Upwards from there, we've made even more perks available, like having your name shouted out at the end of our show and a personal Zoom call with me and Anita to discuss ways to overthrow convicted criminal felon 47, Elon motherfucking Musk, and the GOP. If you could please become a Patreon subscriber at any level, go to patreon.com/TruBlu. That's TruBlu Politics Podcast. We love you guys. Stay strong and stay in the fight.
Olivia Juliana. She's on with Harry Sisson. I don't know if you're all familiar with him from Really American.
Yep.
And they're talking about some sort of debate that went on between her and all the people with the Trump White House. But anyway, she makes this comment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she makes this comment about, how young men that she's talked to, they feel like, the Democratic Party just doesn't welcome them.
So I also think it's just so abundantly clear that the people who say these things don't actually spend time talking to young men. You know this because we know each other in real life, but I spend a lot of time on college campuses, and I spend a lot of time with
young men.
I love young men. I love frat guys, and in that I realized even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who supported Black Lives Matter. And so I feel like people just kind of lump them into this box when the truth is, again, a lot of them are with us on the issues. They're just not part of our coalition because they feel like they're not welcomed in it.
Yeah, I mean, look, Olivia is absolutely right. And that's probably what's driving these Republicans crazy. The Democratic Party has a lot of policies that these young men on college campuses around the country who voted for Donald Trump actually agree with. A lot of young men are pro choice, they're pro gay marriage, they supported BLM, they support reproductive rights broadly, they support voting rights and things like that. But it's just the Republican Party has done such a good job at lying to these young men, saying, hey, we're going to be better. We're going to solve all of your problems. You don't have to blame it on these people. You don't have to blame it on us. We can blame it on women. We can blame it on minorities. We can blame it on whatever group of people you want to pick. And for some reason, so many people have been convinced by that argument and voting for Donald Trump. So what Olivia is saying here is like, hey, let's just talk to young men on an individual level. Let's talk to them as if they're human beings, not be condescending, and bring the facts forward. And maybe we can convince some people to vote for Democrats again. And as I mentioned, the Republicans weren't too happy about that.
Yeah, people are so condescending. They just don't listen to men enough.
Yeah. God, that just makes my head go.
I know. And Olivia, I love her.
I think they answer. Well, here, let me just say, I mean, but this is the thing, he basically says exactly what has happened. The reason that older white men, their older contemporaries, are continuing to vote against their own best interests. They've always voted against their own best interest. It's because of the misogyny, because of the racism. So basically what they're saying is, oh no, they're here with us on all the issues. Well, a lot of people for a long time that vote Republican have, but if you talk to them about issues, they agree with the issues, but yet it's the racism and the misogyny. So and I'm just going to say my piece really quick and then we'll, but here's the thing. So I appreciate the intention behind these young women wanting to go and have these conversations with them. But I just don't know, it's the same old. And so then I feel like just as we kind of, coddled or allowed for men to feel a certain kind of way, and we were kind of put in this position where it's, part of, what you need to do is stroke their egos and make them feel not so, bad about things. So I just feel like in a way it's a continuation of that. That's my issue with it. It's like, I'm kind of at the point now, it's like I have sons and, my boys know better. Anita has a son. He knows better.
Lisa has two.
Yeah.
Right. We don't raise our kids that way. But you know what? They think they voted in their best interest. So we say they don't vote in their best interest. They think what's in their best interest is protecting white male supremacy.
Right.
That's why they vote that way.
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Carries through. That's the bottom line. It's they think that they're better than. That's why they can vote the way they do, because it doesn't really touch them.
Nope.
They're not the ones who are going to be college kids. If they're in college, they're not afraid they're not going to be able to get an abortion if they get a girl pregnant.
Mm-mm.
They're not afraid that they don't move up the ladder. They're not afraid of any of that
being
stuff
deported.
That we are. And so to break it down that we have to go to them and coddle them is ridiculous. Kamala spoke to them.
Yep.
She told them what she was going to do.
I just got.
So what is it that you're looking for? Me to pull up your pants and tell you you're handsome?
Right. They want to walk into a room and everybody has to stand up and listen. Everybody has to pay attention to what they're saying.
White male dominance.
Yeah.
Same shit.
I have to agree. I have to say, okay, as a mother of two college-age sons, who I talk to all the time about this kind of stuff, that this whole thing is bullshit.
Yes.
You're a male and you're a Democrat and you believe in all this stuff and you go there and you are a good person and you know right from wrong, or you have been completely I don't even know what they're talking about. The Democrat guys who are pro-choice and care about all this stuff and vote for Trump, there's a disconnect there.
That's right.
What kind of frat party he's going to, but it's like,
and she
that doesn't line up.
Right. And she identifies them as conservative. So what do you mean bringing them back to the Democratic Party?
No.
And when he says, but it's the minority's fault, it's the women's fault. I mean, what is their fault?
Yeah.
Right.
What is their, I mean, that you're not able, you're not filthy rich. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't either.
Those kids are either, for lack of a better term, woke or not. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And it is so massively divided in a very concise and clear way. If you have any of those things that in those conservative tenets, you are not a Democrat, okay? And you are not voting for anybody other than Trump. It's so divided and so clear. If you did feel those things, you were never going to vote for Trump ever. If you ever wanted to have a girlfriend,
I raised a white male in Texas, and he's an athlete, a baseball player. He went to college on a baseball scholarship, and he would never vote for Trump. Never. He's a total Democrat, and he's always been that way. I've taught him to treat people decently and to be, not be hateful towards gay people or and women should be respected and listened to just as much as men.
Mm-hmm.
So he would never think that.
Well,
I'm
right.
sorry, I just don't get. I don't buy this. I don't.
I don't either. And I don't either. And I was on her Substack. She was talking to another young woman, and I was throwing in the comments. I'm like, I'm done with that shit. Why are we sitting there trying to figure them out?
Right.
Because here, this is the thing. These boys that they're going to have a conversation with, it's the same assholes that were at Ole Miss, taunting and jeering that young
girl.
black girl,
black woman.
calling her a monkey. Those are the same guys
Those are the
that
frat
she's
boys she
trying
likes.
to. Yeah, those are the same guys that she's trying to appeal to. How about we go and appeal to the guys that didn't vote?
Right.
Why don't we go and talk to and to the people?
Well, like Frangela always says, stop trying to recruit voters at a Klan rally.
Thank
Stop
you.
it.
We're always looking every time, whether it was the Walmart, remember the soccer moms? Remember the soccer moms? Mm-hmm. Now it's these young white men. And we're supposed to try to get these young white men.
Wham.
Like,
tiny violin right here.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you were saying yesterday, Debrianna. It's like, this exact same thing of just like, okay, we need to get our people on our side, energizing. There are more of us. What we can't convert the people that from birth, if they're these frat boys or whatever, to be what we need them to be. The hate's already there. Like, we need to get the masses who are more of us that know better of our moral compass, and get us something to believe in.
Well, here's the we're going to circle right back around to the beginning of this conversation of the stories that we've been told, the conditioning that has happened. These young people are conditioned in the way that we've been conditioned for time in millennia. That, oh yeah, I get all the things I want. It's just women have to behave. That's basically what she doesn't realize they're telling her.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're telling. The conditioning is right up front.
Yes.
And
somebody's taking this away from me.
He's a white, good-looking male.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, you don't get to whine about that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
It's a waste of her time.
I agree. I feel like you can go and try and get people that are reachable. Why are we trying? Because these guys threw a temper tantrum.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They throw a temper tantrum.
Ain't gonna change until the leopard eats their face.
Thank you.
Those boys get out of college and they get a girl pregnant and there is no place for them to go for an abortion, then maybe they'll wake up. Or maybe they're going to watch their grandma get rolled out of a nursing home because there's no more Medicare. Or, it's going to have to hit them. And I
these little boys are going to be changing grandma's bedpan and giving grandma a sponge bath. How's that?
Yeah, but for the most part, no. What's going to happen is his sister's going to be doing that.
Yeah, well,
the truth
is,
those white boys will never feel that. That's the reason why they stay this way.
Yeah, but I would argue, and if I had to venture a guess, none of those boys, have sisters. Those are boys that are, have been,
single child. They're single.
Well,
kids.
I don't know. Honestly, and their sisters are the ones who take care of business.
Yeah,
they're not going to take care of the mom. They're not going to take care of mom when she gets older, right? Or the mom. Yeah. So I don't. The only way these
You're looking
boys
for
are going to
votes in
find
the
out.
wrong place.
Yes.
Looking for
Bottom
votes
line.
Boys are only going to find out when they hit rock bottom because
That's right.
honestly, what's happening now with the economy, and if
And their
women
401k crashes.
and their 401k crashes, and their workers like those dairy farmers in Wisconsin who have to go out and milk their own cows because all the undocumented guys got sent away.
Yeah.
That's how they're going to learn.
Yeah.
And they lose their business.
They don't learn any other way.
That's right.
You can go there and talk to them all you want, young lady.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
And
but
like
if
I
they
said,
already understand what they want, that they want to have abortion rights, that they want to have this, they want to have that, and yet they're Republicans.
right.
Sorry.
Yes, I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I'd like to ask her what the conversion rate is at this point. That's what I want to know.
But for a long time, I've been hearing this. Oh, these guys, all these people in Iowa, they're pro, so they want Social Security. They even want more Social Security. They're pro-choice. They're pro immigration and all these other things, right? But then they all vote Republican.
Right.
They always vote Republican. Because in the end, that doesn't matter. Like I said before, the one thing that matters to these people is white supremacy.
Right. Well, and part of the problem, I think maybe part of the problem is we are ceding that space, and maybe it's not. We don't have Democrats running everywhere. We should.
She would be so much better off talking to young women. I'll give you an example. I love my cousin dearly. She just turned 40. When she was 35, when she was 35, we were sitting at the Thanksgiving table with the whole family, and she said something, blah, 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 blah. And I go, well, we don't have the ERA yet, so what would it matter? She goes, what's the ERA? I go, we're not in the Constitution. Women are not recognized in the Constitution. And she's like, what? I thought we had that. This is an educated woman. I'm like, oh my God.
No, they don't know.
Educated lady. And I've been on a bandwagon to just force that for the last 5 years. But, because they've had more than we have growing up, they take it for granted, and they need to not do that.
And we've stopped talking about it. We've stopped talking about how women were not paid the same.
Yes.
We stopped talking about abortion.
We try to soften it and say abortion is healthcare.
Right.
No, it isn't. It's my right.
Right.
Well,
It's my right to decide if I want to live during childbirth or not, or even have that kid.
Yeah, and don't use
my right. But instead, we always soften it as Democrats, and not me particularly.
Right.
I don't soften anything. But unless we go in to the belly of the beast and start fighting on the same playing field that they're fighting on, we're going to lose this argument. And that's why we've lost the argument, because we are not saying it like it is.
Well, and then it's this kind of this point that we find ourselves in where we can't even have those arguments or those conversations because there's a motherfucking horse in the hospital that's breaking everything. So it's like,
that's right.
But in the end, what we have to do is tell stories. You started with talking about telling stories. That's what
I was going to say that. Right. You took the words out of my mouth. That's why our stories to tell the younger women.
That's right.
We've got to keep going with this. That's why Debrianna do all the things that we do, because we're constantly looking back at this time when we're growing wiser, of the perspective of what we had then, comparing it to now, looking at, what we've given up and had stripped away, what we fought for, what we watched our grandmothers and great grandmothers live without. And then we got it, and then it's been taken away. It's like,
but they don't understand that this generation stands on the shoulders of everybody who came before them.
That's right.
They are not alone. They didn't invent the wheel. They had people who came before them.
Right.
And we're it. And we fought. And why aren't you in the street?
Right. And I think, and
they won't understand that until they hear the stories about what is happening now, too.
Right. Right.
Like the stories about the girl I told you about, the 19-year-old who died here in Texas.
That's right.
Because they wouldn't give her an abortion.
Yeah, and I think part of that honestly has to do with the fact that I think that, this generation, some of the millennials, certainly Gen Z, they look at Gen X and they say, you guys fucked it up. So it kind of
Takes away their
and I'm not
responsibility.
talking I'm not saying that any of us we did not fuck it up, but they're but they
That's true.
basically
We voted right.
broadly
Yeah.
we did the right thing,
But
but
a lot
I
of us
understand
fought.
right no I know, but
Yeah.
but from their perspective, when you have climate change and when you have so it's like
Yeah.
you guys fucked it up and now you want to tell us how
Oh,
to
let's
fix
just
it.
go back there though. I remember as a kid, the ozone layer was melting.
Yes.
And they're not the only ones who have
But they don't
It was
know
our
those
generation
stories.
was saying the same
Yeah.
thing, but
And
it's
they
true.
don't know, yes, but they don't know those stories, right?
Yeah.
So they're just like, reacting to it and saying and dismissing. I mean,
Right.
and I'm not saying all of them because my kids,
No,
they're not going to
no.
dismiss
So
me.
what I always
But
like to say is you got to nip it in the bud with these people. You
Yes.
can't gloss over stuff. If
Right.
they comment like that and you're in a firsthand conversation with somebody, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's online or in person or whatever, you got to go, hang on, wait a second. Okay. I was at a march with 500,000 people in
That's right.
1988 for reproductive rights. Okay. When Bush the first was in there and we kept saying, let Barbara out of the closet because she was a Planned Parenthood supporter. Okay?
Yes.
Nobody was talking about it. Like, I was in the street, kid, so don't
Yeah.
do that.
And for
That's
gay rights,
right.
I remember marching. I tell people all the time, these conservatives, hey, you know what? When people like you were over there cheering on Bush and his stupid Iraq war, people like me were out on the streets protesting and trying to warn you they were lying to us.
Yep. And that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like it takes us to tell them the stories. So getting back to the stories. So the kids that are running around finger pointing and dismissing, Gen X, and that's why I hate this, like the generation wars that were
Yeah, I
taking
know.
place all the time, because it's such a lack of respect. I respect the millennials. I respect the Gen Z. I respect and try and understand the anxiety that they're feeling because the things were not able to get done. But the reality of the situation is we in our generation, and just like the generation before us, had stories that were of value to impart. And so you talk about how is her time better spent? Maybe sitting down with women older than her to hear the stories and hear our experiences, to then have an understanding
framework,
and then frame it for herself, so then that she can go and have conversations with other women in her generation.
She just figured out her
And
life
tell those
work.
boys to grow up and stop crying.
What was that, Lisa?
I think you just figured out her life's work for her, and you should go let her know.
I tried. No, I'm just kidding. No.
She should come talk to us. That's what
She basically, her response to my comments and her Substack,
she was not happy.
and that is why we are where we are, because the attitudes like that.
She knows everything at 22. That's why we
and
are
that's
where
a
we
hard
are.
part of that age.
And by the way, I'm sorry, but Gen Z, they cry and everything, but they weren't being sent to a war in Vietnam to die.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to blame anyone, blame the silent generation and the boomers, not Gen X.
Yeah, it's the boomers. They're all their fault. Let's get
we
the
are still fighting.
I don't know. The boomers were fighting too.
Down. And
some were.
There
civil
with
rights.
The boomers in the 60s, they reversed
Absolutely,
themselves.
they were.
They reversed. They were out there in the streets.
That's me. That's my generation. We were. I'm a boomer.
They went back to the greed is good. It's like,
Yeah, it was the 80s, really, honestly. It was that generation. The 80s was a terrible.
The 80s. No, it wasn't that. It was Reagan.
Reagan, yes, but that's what I mean. There's a lot of young people that
I
voted
swear to
Reagan.
God, it's going to be on my tombstone. It started with Reagan.
Me too.
Reagan was the one who shifted the values, because I was in New York and did Hands Across America at the same time that Reagan was saying, "Oh, we need to build more," and he was building high rises. There were things going up all over the place, and nobody to go in them. That's when they stopped doing raising of the minimum wage. That's when they
teared down the solar panels and
out onto the street, out of mental institutions. So people who needed help were out on the streets of New York. No, I was there then. We were fighting at the same time. There was this huge shift in values, and reality TV came in, so that everybody thought the only thing they had to do was be a star. and not have
Well,
any crap.
and not worry about all that other stuff, like the civil rights movement, the women's movement, and all that other stuff.
No, everything shifted from, I always say that's when we went from a we society to a me society.
And the anti-government shit.
It has not ever gotten off that track. And if we can ever get back to the place where we value what you put out, that is valued on how it affects a community instead of the return on investment, we will have a shift in this country. But until that happens, and we are only worried about how much money you make. I remember during that time we had labor pages. We don't have that now. We have the stock market ticker. I remember when a movie
busted unions too.
It was how many people saw it, not how much money it made on its opening weekend. Everything we do in this country is valued on the dollar and not on the contribution. And we have to make that change.
Yep. And it was also all performative politics.
Oh yeah.
You know, with Reagan. And that's what he was, he walked so Reagan, could Trump could run because he started with that performative bullshit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and I also
Lisa,
think
go
that
ahead.
It's never real.
Yeah,
he's
Lisa.
going to this place of like, make America great again, blah, 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 and the stuff of the past, like that was some great thing. It was total crap. But can we start framing things of, here's the world we could have? And that's what I feel like Kamala did. And never going to accept that it was a fluke and whatever. She almost won, okay? And she may have even won, except for Elon Musk's interference, and God knows what we don't know about.
God knows.
Yeah, there's a lot of sketchy things.
But I mean, that was a serious wave of realization, I think, especially for young people. What kind of world do you want? Here's what it could be. And we can go beyond this. We could be a really nice place to live that supports each other and everybody wins, and you can make
like
money
Canada.
And you could have a safety net, and you can have your autonomy and free speech and whatever. We can coexist. But now, because of their really amazing marketing, I guess, and propaganda, we're not there, and we're way backwards to where we could have been.
Yep.
And we need to paint that picture that you're talking about.
That's what this young lady should be doing.
That's right. Don't go to the guys and have conversations with the guys who are about to have their
them.
and with them. Yes, and have their they're about to have their faces eaten off by
for time and energy. We're not going to go forward with trying to convert the people who are from birth been taught hate. Okay,
that's
those people aren't.
No, if those are the things you want, but this is the way you vote, then you have a problem.
That's it.
That's right. That's right. Well, why? I mean, seriously, that you would be so, blaming minorities. I can't get that out of my head where he's talking about, well, the Republicans tell them they can blame minorities and blame
shit.
women.
Again, same shit.
Yeah.
Same shit. So now, I'm going to say this because Anita, you have to leave soon.
I know I do.
Yeah. Okay. So we always like to kind of leave on a note of, what are you doing to self-care, have some self-care. And then also, what are some things that you're doing to resist? And, whether it's resistance through joy, resistance through, activism in the streets or whatever. So let's start with Lisa.
Okay. Self-care. Well, my therapist has said it's really, really important right now, more than any other time probably, to learn how to compartmentalize, because it is so overwhelming. I'm sure it's the same for you guys, to wake up to this nightmare every single day, the overwhelm, the amount of things, the worry, the anxiety. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to put everything in a box. And when I decide, I have the power to go to that box when I want to be really angry, blah, blah, blah. But I got to separate these things out, because I don't want what is happening with our government to take my joy. We still should be allowed to live a life of joy, and have that, even though we're upset, but don't let it overtake your life, So what do? I try to walk every day. I try to garden is very therapeutic for me. Writing, expressing, being with friends. Everything I do with Debrianna is, we're decompressing constantly and breaking things down, and it helps me. But the worst part is just the feeling of maybe I can't make a difference because this is all just going to shit. But it's not true. So to go to the resistance part, what can you do? Every single thing you do with your voice matters. I call my representatives on my phone all the time, and just it makes me feel better to express, even if it's on a voicemail or to their assistant or whatever. I don't like this. I am upset. Blah blah blah. I get off the phone and I feel better. Or thank you for voting this way. Thank you. Because you want to be gracious too. Also, going to the marches. For me, I've been to every single one. I think I've been to like 14 this year or something like that.
Wow.
Big signs. I've not missed one. Going, of course, to the No Kings on June 14th.
June 14th.
I'm going to take my kids with me. I've taken them to marches their entire life. And to be in community with people at those things is very empowering. It's not scary. Don't let them make you afraid. Don't let fear win. I'm really looking forward to this one. Our community is very active, and we're there for each other. And you're not alone. You'll feel better. Just do it. You have to do something every day. Try.
Yeah.
I think for me, I have the creative outlet of being in my kitchen every day, and I look at it like my studio. I definitely use that time to decompress, to be creative, and to spread that joy. I have people over for dinner, even if it's just one and we just sit in my yard. I also am a massive gardener, so I probably spent the whole morning in my yard, moving plants around and talking to my plants and doing that. But I also walk every day, and I try when I'm on my walks. The only thing I'll listen to, I think, is Stephanie, because she makes me laugh, Stephanie Miller, when I'm walking, or Frangela. But if I'm not, then I listen to the Beatles, or I listen to the albums of my childhood. And lately I've been obsessed with protest albums like, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and the time period of the 60s and 70s where people were using their creative voices to speak about the injustices in the world. And that music is compelling and the lyrics are moving. And for me, that I am waiting for that to happen in this generation, that we are in that time period where that expression is not going to come from AI.
Right.
It's going to come from people's souls, and we need to move that forward. So I cook, I walk, I garden. I try to spend time with my husband, like if we just escape and go and have coffee together, or make sure that we're talking to each other, and with friends, like, you guys, I spend time talking to you, and trying to be, really what it comes down to is a connection. It's a connection to other human beings, not the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The computer. That's where we're going to find our, not just our solace and our joy and our health, but we're going to move forward by community. And that is my great hope for this time period, is that what's going to come out of it is we're going to re-find connection to community.
Yep.
And because that's the only way we're going to get out of this. We're not going to get out of this one by one. We're going to get out of it together as a force.
Thank you. Go ahead, Anita.
I just wanted to say real quick, because I might have to go. As far as you just reminded me about the June 14th No Kings protests. Well, apparently you can get tickets for free to Donald Trump's parade, and it would be a shame if you didn't show up. It's events.america250.org.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd just be a shame if a lot of people got free tickets and didn't show up, wouldn't it be?
Shame. That would be sad.
That would be awful.
Just wanted y'all to know that.
Well, thanks, Anita, and I know that
You're
that
welcome.
gives you.
Always
I know
trying to
that
help.
that gives you great joy.
It does. It gives me great
yes.
joy. That would give me great joy if nobody showed up. If it was just, it ended up being like that one in Oklahoma. Remember that?
Yes,
When
Anita's
nobody was
happy
there?
places on Twitter making conservatives cry,
Yeah, that's true. I love
Nazis
doing that.
cry. She loves it.
I do love that. But also, what I do, I just walk and I get on my I try to exercise on my treadmill and read books. Well, I listen to books. I'm into like old, sentimental books. I was telling Karen like Jane Eyre, and like
Yep, that's what I'm
yeah,
listening
Pride
to
and
too, the
Prejudice.
classic. Yep.
Yes, exactly. Listen to the classics. I'm also like watching the movies, the classics, and stuff like that. Things that just kind of escapism,
Mm.
When I
Yeah.
get really stressed, I have to. That's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say this time, for me, the great takeaway and kind of epiphany is, and kind of transformation is moving away from this kind of idea that, like we've always said, like, oh, men are just desserts. I'm starting to really, truly appreciate and feel for the first time the sisterhood, the importance of women coming together in
Yep.
community. And just, noticing very much so that, when you are just with women in community and there's a man that comes into the situation, how the dynamic changes so much. And that's been kind of fascinating for me. So, I think that, we all kind of swim in the same water. We listen to the same podcasts. We read some of the same reading material and watch some of the same movies. But I feel like just coming together in person, getting together, protesting, having conversations like with both of you and hearing your story and kind of how you were able to turn lemons and make delicious lemonade. And then, there are these great women that are coming out and finding voices and making their voices heard in various ways, in meaningful ways. And so that gives me a tremendous amount of joy, in addition to all of the things that you guys have already mentioned. But, like we have the, I've Had It podcast. Those women are phenomenal. They're kicking ass. You have Politics Girl kicking ass. JoJo from Jurors kicking ass. Jody Hamilton kicking ass. Stephanie Miller, of course, the goddess, kicking ass. And I really feel like that is, for me, it feels hopeful and empowering for, the future. And I feel too, I really do think that, Olivia Juliana, that would be an amazing thing for her to sit down in conversation and community with women who are older than her, to really kind of hear some of the stories and then move in her space and around her fellow women. It's not about getting men to come into our corner.
Add something, Karen?
Yes.
If you're in a place in your life where you have control of things, and just riffing off what you just said, I'm developing a TV series for children right now for Gen Alpha, the next generation. And my producing partner and I are committed to having our production team be mostly women.
That's awesome.
We can do that. So like if you're in a place in your life with whatever you're doing and you can provide opportunity, especially for women, do that. That's going to bring you a lot of joy, because guess what? As Debrianna and I both know, when you're working on a film set that's mostly women, it's a magnificent experience if you're lucky enough to have it, because the vibe is completely different from the male-dominated ones. 100%. It's just like joyful. We support each other, not about like, cat calls and weirdness and with some weird sexual thing or whatever, or gonna be condescending to you or whatever. You can eliminate that. If you have the for any of your groups or anything that you're doing to, hey, I know a crazy idea. Let's do that. Let's have female interns only, or whatever. Like, do it. Help lift someone else up.
And I feel like too, I know we have to wrap, but too, one thing that I've noticed is like I was in all female committees, like when my kids were in school, like on the preschool board and whatever. And it's interesting to see the dynamics with women at that point in our lives where there's a little bit more competition. And I really wonder if that is because we are, you're still kind of in that competitive space, right? You're still of childbearing years and you're kind of versus now where it's just like, I don't give a fuck. Like, we got to come together. You start realizing that like our strength is when we come together and fight together.
This is a prime time in our lives. We've been it's that conditioning thing, conditioned that we're crones now, we're wasted now. My own dad, oh my God. I was talking to my dad when I was traveling through California and we were on a book tour. And my sister had said to me, have you talked to Dad lately? I think he's not well. So I stopped what I was doing. I went to a coffee shop and I called my dad and he said, where are you? And I said, I'm in California doing my book tour. I said, Dad, can you imagine that? Like, after all this time, I'm going to get famous for writing a book when, I've been an actor all this time. And he said, yeah, all those years of wasted beauty.
Oh boy.
God.
Yes. And you know what though? This is the thing. And then we'll wrap, but we are the wise women.
Yep.
We are the sages and we are the crones.
Yep.
Proven scientifically, why do we have menopause? Because the women carry the wisdom. We have to live longer. They end the childbearing so that we can pass on the wisdom and the human race can continue on. This is why we go through menopause, but that's another podcast.
Well, we will do it. We will do it again because
we need to have that podcast.
This was a fantastic conversation, and I
absolutely.
Well, we're hoping to get to Chicago at some point and do a book signing. So.
I know we would love to come visit.
Yes, definitely.
But you ever come to Texas?
No.
We vowed against.
Don't, I guess.
No.
Nowadays, I don't know if that would be even safe.
We're close enough in New Mexico that we're almost.
Come see us in New Mexico.
Yeah, definitely. Anita, I'll come and get you. I'll throw you in the backpack.
New Mexico. We have to get across your little Texas. So
yes,
that's the hard part.
I'll come and get you. But anyway, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. It was just such a privilege. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to meet you and talk with you. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.